Church. How are you this morning? On this foggy, humid morning, I think we are going from chilly weather into heat. I think I saw that it's going to be like 89 degrees today. So, hence the fog and the humid weather. What are you all drinking this morning?
All right.
Oh, here comes Jay. It is the Jay and Jamie show.
It is the Triple J morning show.
Well, Jesus is always here.
I'm just saying, don't forget the third J there,
We don't have to
Jamie.
wait on Jesus. He's always here.
Oh, well played. Yes, indeed. Just had to throw it from our Facebook page to our Facebook group. I don't know why I can't do that automatically, but we have to do that manually. So there we go. It should be appearing on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, our Grace Church website, and our wonderful Grace Church SA YouTube channel, which is just becoming better and better with every week. It's so much fun. Here we go. Do you realize that this is the 5th Sunday in a row where the weather has been inopportune for us
To be on
the porch?
We really want to do this from the porch.
We thought that would be a great location.
Beautiful out there.
Wonderful. However,
Today,
the weather conspires against us.
a little foggy, a little sprinkly. My hair would probably not have fit back through the sliding glass windows.
I have no idea what that means, except that she gets big hair.
I get really big hair.
Remember the 80s?
I was so cool in the 80s.
She was a rock star.
I mean, my hair was cool. I don't know if I was cool.
You were pretty cool.
My hair was cool.
That's what we tell our kids anyways. So good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Jay.
What do you have in your glass this morning?
I am having coffee.
Is it a Sumatra blend?
No, it's a Colombian blend.
A Colombian blend. Wait for it, with
Oat milk.
oat milk. Just sounds like punishment. I don't know.
It's really good.
So,
And I need it this morning. Ooh, that alarm went off.
it did.
I didn't want to get up. We had a generous, glorious gift
We did.
of 2 days by a beautiful, serene body of water.
Indeed.
And so, just recharge, refuel. But man, I did not want to get up this morning. But I was excited to come do the Triple J show with you.
Yeah, you better be.
Yeah.
Come on now.
And to talk about Jesus.
You got it. So what am I drinking? I'm glad you asked. I'm drinking a Bang. Today's flavor is black cherry vanilla. One of my favorites. It's kind of old school. I go back to it every now and then. And I do want to point out that it is the essential amino acids and the super creatine that make Bang so wonderful. You say Sunday morning, I say Bang time.
Does that taste like, is that supposed to taste like, can we say it on TV?
I don't know.
Facebook?
I don't know what you're about to say, so I have no idea.
Does it taste like Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb? I can say both, right?
Wow.
Does it taste like one of those? Is that what it's supposed to taste like?
No.
Cherry, vanilla?
No, I'm confused as to how you even got there.
Isn't that what those are supposed to taste like?
No.
Cherry
Dr. Pepper,
and vanilla?
Dr. Pepper tastes like ambrosia, the drink of the gods, since it is clearly the greatest beverage ever created by humankind. No, black cherry vanilla tastes like black cherry Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid, anybody?
Oh, do you remember? We were talking about that the other day. Do y'all remember Kool-Aid?
We were a big Kool-Aid family in my house.
We were not. I was not allowed to have Kool-Aid.
How sad is that? No Kool-Aid.
No Kool-Aid. I
Come
remember.
on, there was a full day serving of vitamin C in every packet of Kool-Aid. It said so right on the label.
But there was a lot of sugar and you could just have
Yeah,
an orange. My
yeah,
mom
yeah.
actually gave me an orange for my vitamin C. Like,
Wow.
here, Jamie, eat an orange.
That's just sad.
I was so healthy.
We got-
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, we got
Thank you,
Tang.
Mom.
Instead of a dumb old orange, we got Tang. You remember Tang?
Yeah.
Hey, if it was good enough for astronauts, it was good enough for our family.
I used
That's
to
what
go
I
to
say.
friends' houses, and I can remember this when I was little. I went to a friend's house, and she had the Kool-Aid that had the rainbow picture on it. I don't know if that was fruit punch or Hawaiian punch. I don't remember which one that was. But she had the canister that had the sugar already mixed in it.
Ooh.
And I can remember dipping my fingers in there and just eating the Kool-Aid right out of the canister. And that was at a friend's house, of course, because I wasn't allowed to have Kool-Aid.
Man.
That
Kool-Aid.
was a discovery
Kool-Aid with the sugar already mixed in it, that was like for rich kids. I mean, I don't know. Like, we didn't roll that way on my neighborhood. You had to mix your own dang Kool-Aid where I grew up.
I think I was 4 or 5 at the time. I was little.
My sister really liked the black cherry Kool-Aid. That was her go-to flavor.
Yeah.
I was more of a grape Kool-Aid. Sometimes lime was also good,
lime.
the green one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think I would have liked them all because they had sugar.
I think you probably would have. So, there we go. Beverages of the day.
Beverages of the
Getting
day.
caffeinated and sugared up. Although
I haven't seen Kool-Aid in the stores in a lot. Do they have Kool-Aid on the aisle? I don't know.
Zero sugar in a bang. Zero sugar, zero carbs. There you go.
Guess what also has 0 sugar? Coffee.
Water.
Coffee with oat milk.
Coffee with oat milk.
We should probably not take a sip at the same time.
That really was some dead air there. We got to work on that. Maybe what's her face? That skinny blonde chick on the TV.
That narrows it down.
That
really narrows it down.
With Strahan, the gal who does the show with Michael Strahan.
Strahan is long gone. I told you that the other day. That's Kelly Ripa.
That one.
And it's now Ryan Seacrest for years now.
Oh, well, okay.
3, 5 years, something like
whatever.
that.
Maybe she could give us some pointers about not taking sips at the same time.
Maybe so.
You know.
I bet she could give us a lot of.
She probably could. She seems to be very good at her job.
Yes, she makes it look really easy.
Yeah.
I have a new appreciation for anybody who does this every day.
All right. So we're going to have a little conversation today.
We are.
About the Gospel of John.
What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about John chapter 21.
The very end of John.
The very end of John, because we are coming to a close on our journey through John. This is it. We're wrapping it up, people.
7 weeks in John.
Yeah, pretty good stuff.
I'm a little sad. I've enjoyed my journey in John.
It's been good.
It has been good. And today we talk about chapter 21, the very last chapter.
Yeah, indeed.
We are going to talk about Peter.
We are.
Old Pete.
Pedro.
Petra.
Which in Greek?
Rock.
The Rock. Can he swim with a name like Rock? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Can swim,
We'll find out today.
You think Dwayne Johnson can swim?
That was an old school reference to Rocky 2.
I get it, but Dwayne Johnson is also the Rock, and he's probably my favorite
He's
Rock.
the second
Okay,
Rock.
Peter, sorry.
Clearly Sylvester Stallone.
Peter would be my first Rock.
I think Peter's the first Rock, then Sylvester Stallone.
No.
Then Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Oh, wrong. Dwayne in front of Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, my head.
Oh.
That's a sin.
For sure.
Are you?
Ladies.
Rocky!
Are you with me? Ladies, come on.
Oh, my head.
Dwayne Johnson.
It's terrible. Terrible.
I can't do that.
We did it again.
We did it again.
All right, so John chapter 21. I noticed something about this chapter today.
Today?
Yep. As I was reflecting on it, preparing a little bit further this morning. It seems to me that there's a lot going on in this chapter that has already gone on.
Well, that would be why it's at the end.
Right. But usually at the end of something, you find a summary, if you will.
Yes.
I don't think this is a summary.
Well, it's not.
I think this is a reflection. I think this chapter serves as a reflector, turning us back and saying, remember when Jesus did that? Remember when Jesus said that? Remember when Jesus did that other thing? I think that it really is, rather than a summary, it's a reminder. It's saying, remember, remember, remember. And I found that pretty fascinating to think about. I saw it as a big mirror that got turned around and went, and turned us back to the gospel.
I can totally see that. And what's funny is, as I was reflecting this morning, I saw it catapulting us forward into the book of Acts.
Okay. All right.
Isn't that funny?
That is interesting.
Looking backward and looking forward.
Not to say that it can't do both.
Well, I think it probably does.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, cool.
All right.
We're going to have some fun this morning.
Okay.
All right, let's dig in.
Pedro.
So, we see here in chapter 21 that Jesus comes to Peter. Now, remember, Peter has denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus said Peter was going to do it.
He did.
And Peter didn't believe him. He was like, who, Jesus? Who's going to deny you?
Not me.
And Jesus was
I would never do that.
Peter, I know. I'm foreknowing. I know everything. You're going to do it.
Maybe that Barnabas guy would do it, because really his name's Barnabas. I mean, come on.
But Barnabas didn't do it. Peter did it.
Yep.
One of the inner 3. Ooh.
Yeah.
How much did that hurt? And so Peter does. We see in John, Peter denies Jesus 3 different times.
Chapter 18, verses 17, 25, and 27.
Yeah. So here in 21, Jesus comes to Peter, and 3 different times he covers that sin of Peter. And he says, Peter, do you love me?
Pete says, yes, you know I love you.
You know I love you. You know my heart, Jesus.
You know all things, Lord.
You're my best friend, Lord.
I love you.
Yeah. This to me reminds me a lot of what might happen in marriages. That we hurt each other, we betray each other, and we give each other the opportunity to reinstate through love. That it is through love that forgiveness comes. Okay. And that we come back together. And so Jesus comes to Peter and says, do you love me? Because love is what is going to heal that bridge. And Peter says, Jesus, you know, you are my best friend. You are closest to me. You know I love you. Jesus asks him again. Again. Well, Peter, now I just want to know, if I asked you 3 different times, by the 3rd time, what would you be saying? I am in trouble. This is not good. Oh my gosh, we're fixing to have a family meeting. I don't know. Family meeting.
Oh my God. Next words out of her mouth are going to be, we need to talk.
We need to talk.
Never good. Never good. Oh, my head. Whew, look, you're just making me uncomfortable now. Like my hands are sweating. Good heavens.
So Jesus.
But that's not what's going on here.
That's not what's going on here. What's going on here?
What's going on here is repetition for emphasis, which is something that we see often in Scripture. We've talked about this before. When the gospel writers give us something again and again and again, they are doing what good teachers do, which is they are emphasizing it by repeating it. And this in particular, I think that the reinstatement of Peter, that's what this is referred to, is clearly 3 for 3. 3, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you, to cover up each of the 3 denials. And so that we see in this process, what we see is forgiveness in this love. And of course, it is born of sacrifice. Yeah. It comes out of the crucifixion and resurrection. So in this love that we have going on here, thinking about marriage, we've got sacrifice and we have forgiveness mixed up in it, because those are some primary elements of what love looks like, which sounds a lot like marriage to me. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Well, I think this is why we see this story placed after the crucifixion. I think that's why it is here in Scripture, is that we have to have the crucifixion and the resurrection for real redemption and forgiveness. For real reunification, we've got to have the crucifixion and the resurrection, and I think that's why it's placed here in this part of Scripture.
Well, and there's some interesting things about these questions. First of all, Jesus addresses Peter formally. He doesn't call him Pete, he doesn't call him Petey, he doesn't call him Pedro. He calls him Simon, son of John, which would be formal, like somebody saying to me, the Reverend J. George.
No, it would be like the Reverend Jacob Charles George Jr.
Full on. There we go, like a legal name. Yeah. So there's something about this language that is lifted up.
Right.
It's not casual. It's not casual what's going on here. So Jesus says, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? That more than these is a really interesting phrase.
It is interesting.
And we see Peter's response, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And then Jesus gives him some instructions.
Yes.
Right? He says, feed my sheep, tend my sheep, feed my lambs, something like that. It's probably not the right order, but those are the instructions that we get. A bunch of stuff jumps out here. One of the things that jumps out to me is, if Peter's correct, and Jesus does indeed know all things, because he says that, right? The 3rd time. He says, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you.
You know all things.
So if Jesus already knows that Peter loves him,
yes,
who is Jesus trying to convince with this repetition? Not Jesus.
Not Jesus.
Who's Jesus trying to convince? He's trying to convince Peter.
Right.
He's trying to help Peter understand. And he's trying to help Peter believe what Jesus already knows to be true, which is that Peter does love him. And so Jesus has Peter repeat this to sink it into his own thick, rock-like skull.
Right.
It's not Jesus who needs the reminder.
It's
Peter.
Right.
It's not God who needs to know these things. It's us. I thought that was pretty fantastic.
That leads me right into what our theme is for the sermon today.
Well, let's not steal any thunder from the preacher. I wonder who that's going to be.
So today we're going to talk about how Jesus meets us exactly where we are and gives us exactly what we need.
Interesting.
And here we see Jesus meeting Peter exactly where he is and giving him what he needs 3 times.
3 times.
The 3 reinstatements, the repetition so he gets it.
Okay.
Gives him exactly what he needs.
I like it.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the do you love me more than these?
Okay, let's talk about it. I'm ready, sister.
What?
I did my homework. I know you went straight to Carson. I went to Morris. Let's see whose scholar's got more information today.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Not that it's a competition. Maybe just a tad.
Which is funny because we're going to talk about competition with John and Peter here in a minute.
All right.
Yeah. So, who do you think he's talking about? What do you think he's talking about? Do you love me more than these?
More than these. So there's really 3 options in the Greek, right?
There's 3 options.
The way the Greek is set up, that question could mean, do you love me more than you love these other guys who are here? It could mean, do you love me more than these other guys love me? Or it could mean, do you love me more than these things? Kind of an open reference to fishing and camaraderie and hanging out with your boys and kind of doing your life your way. Because that's really what we see here, right? It's no accident that the fishermen disciples go back to fishing after the crucifixion and the resurrection, and all this has exploded and they don't know what to do.
They go back to their previous life.
They go back to their previous life.
Because they don't know what else to do, so they go backwards.
They do what they know. So they go backwards. That's. So those are the 3 options in the Greek.
Yeah.
I think because of the structure of the conversation, even though it sounds really weird to our ears, that it's Jesus is saying, do you really love me more than these guys love me?
What if it's all 3?
Oh, come on now.
What if it's all 3? What if Jesus is saying, do you love me more than everything? Do you love me more than your friendships with these disciples? Do you love me more than these other disciples love me?
Do you love me more than fishing? I mean, that's really an unfair question.
Do you love me more than your very vocation has been? Do you love me more than all things that you've ever known? Because it's going to take an answer of yes to all 3 to catapult Peter into his next stage.
I think perhaps the son of a carpenter can't really appreciate how great fishing is. I mean,
maybe not.
Maybe Jesus doesn't really know how
Although he did
awesome.
have to fish to live.
Yeah, okay. So
I think he probably did. It was just...
So you're suggesting that God is working on more than one level, that God is speaking to us at multiple levels at the same time?
Always.
Because that's what God does?
Right. And I think it's always all 3.
Okay.
That he wants all of us. And so what he's asking Peter is, do you wholly, fully, all of you, love me more than all these things?
Okay. All right, well, I can buy that. What struck me about this was the idea that do you love me more than these guys love me?
Yeah.
And that sounds so weird because it sounds like Jesus is asking Peter to brag. It sounds like Jesus is asking Peter to claim some superiority over his other disciples, which doesn't really sit right with us, and it certainly doesn't seem to be what Jesus has been about through all this time. So I'm left wondering why this strange question, and then I remember that Pete is the one who himself said, Jesus, I'm with you to the end.
I'm with you to the end.
I don't know about these other jokers who've been hanging out with us for 3 years, and I'm really kind of suspicious of John because, you know, he's all, oh, I love you, Jesus, I love you, Jesus, and, you know, whatever. That guy can't even fish. So, Jesus, I don't know about those guys, but I'm in. I'm in it to win it all the way. Let's go. And we see in John chapter 13 that Peter says to Jesus, Lord, why can I not go where you're going? I will go with you even to death. And Jesus says, really? Okay. Are you sure about that, Pete? And Pete's like, bring it. And Jesus says, I tell you, you're going to deny me 3 times. And that's when Peter's like, no way, not me. Maybe those other dudes, but I would never do that. And then, of course, he does, right? And so what we see here in this question of, do you love me more than these? It's not Jesus asking Peter, now this is not a new question. He's saying, Peter, remember? Remember when you said that you loved me this much? That you loved me enough to lay down your life for me?
You were
a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another the way I have loved you. Jesus lays down his life for his friends. No greater love has man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. Jesus is asking Peter, hey, so you said this is your commitment level.
Yep.
He's not trying to get Peter to place himself above everybody else. He's trying to hold Peter accountable to what Peter's already said. He's pushing him back and saying, okay, you said this. Did you mean it?
Did you mean it? And you were the only one.
Right.
You were the only one who affirmed your commitment to me to that level.
Yeah.
The others didn't.
Right.
That we see. And so Jesus is coming to Peter to affirm his position, to affirm that he's ready. And
who is Peter? Peter's the first bishop of Rome. Peter is the one, upon this rock I will build my church.
Right.
I don't find that insignificant at all, that this is Pete. I mean, because really, I don't think Pete was the brightest of them. I don't think Pete was the best people person. I think that Pete was a fisherman. And to stop Pete,
a little rough on the edges.
To stop him, you were going to have to crush a building on top of him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was going to keep going.
Yeah.
I think that's who Pete is.
Yeah.
It's what I love about him, right? I mean, he's so human, and he loves Jesus.
Yeah.
And he wants to be such the great follower, but he struggles sometimes, just like we do.
Right.
So that's what I see here, is that Jesus is pointing Peter back, and he's saying, remember, and why he wants Peter to remember this is not only for Peter's sake, but for ours, because Peter is the rock upon whom the church is built.
Right, which catapults us forward into the book of Acts and the building of the church.
Okay, all right.
So it can be both. He's looking back and reminding Peter, this is what you said. You would be willing to lay it all aside for me. And I'm going to ask you to do that. I'm going to send you forth to go and build my church.
Yeah.
Because you have committed to this level, because you affirmed, because you have risen up into belief to such a level, I'm going to send you forth in mission.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you forth to build the church.
So, which leads right into Jesus' direction to Peter, feed my sheep, tend my sheep, feed my sheep.
It's Jesus' sheep.
Yeah.
My sheep, my lambs.
And where does that take us? Right back to John chapter 10. I'm the good shepherd.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The good shepherd knows the sheep. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand runs away because he's the hired hand. The sheep aren't his. But the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The good shepherd leads the sheep. The sheep know him. The sheep recognize his voice. I kind of see Jesus saying, okay, these are my sheep and I'm the shepherd. And now, Peter, I want you to be the shepherd.
Right. Because I'm no longer going to be here.
Right.
I'm no longer here. I need somebody physically, that's going to be very important later. I need somebody physically to feed my sheep, to tend the people.
Yeah.
To tend the flock.
Yeah.
And you're it, Peter. You're the pastor. You're the shepherd.
Go for it.
Yeah. Care for my people.
And that's really what some of the language differences, right? There's some stylistic language differences here in this threefold list of John. It says, feed my sheep, really tend my flock is really the next phrase, and then feed my lambs, I think. So is there a difference between lambs and sheep? Is there a difference between feeding and caring for? If we look at the Greek, we even get when Peter and Jesus are talking, we see some differences
in the love language.
in the love language,
Yes.
right?
Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? In the Greek, it's actually, he uses phileo love and then agapeo love. So you see some differences in the kind of love Jesus is asking about. And there's all sorts of theologians are talking, and scholars, Greek scholars are talking about, does that difference really mean anything?
And they've been talking about it for
decades. I can remember in the
centuries.
80s talking about the different kinds of love
Oh,
and
yeah.
how important the
Yeah.
different kinds of love to understand
Come on.
that they were phileo love versus agapeo love, and phileo love is the friendship kind of love, the fellowship
Right.
kind
Brotherly
of
love.
the brotherly love that we get, and agapeo love is the love that we get from Jesus that can only be experienced in conversion,
Yeah, yeah.
the heavenly kind of love. And here's what I have to say about that is agapeo love fuels the filial love. We cannot love in a friendship, fellowship manner without the love of Jesus. We love because Jesus first loved us.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I think that those can be used interchangeably.
Okay.
That
okay.
the heavenly love is the brotherly love. I think that it can be used interchangeably.
Okay.
You don't.
No, the Greeks certainly wouldn't have used it that way, but
Right,
I can
and I
see.
think
I see
that-
what your argument is.
I
That it's kind of the
think that-
consummation of.
Right.
Would you say that the heavenly, that agapeo love, agape would contain phileo?
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and phileo would contain agapeo.
And what about eros? Then would we throw that into the mix as well?
Well, on some level, yes, but not all levels.
No, sure, yeah.
I love you because I have first been loved by Jesus.
I thought you loved me because I was awesome.
That too. But I only recognize your awesomeness because I am in
okay.
relationship with Jesus.
All right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so because I am fueled by the love of Christ, I love you more deeply and better with
Yes.
agapeo love.
Yes, less selfishly.
Less selfishly.
Yeah.
Although I have to be connected to Christ to
Right.
love you
Right.
less selfishly.
Right. So that's where your language of that fuels that.
It
other
fuels
love.
it, yeah. And phileo, we were friends before we were eros.
We were. Well, I don't know about that. She was really good looking.
Okay,
Oh my
stop.
goodness.
Stop.
Not that she's not good looking now. And this is how we get
Yeah.
in trouble.
Oh, you said was good
Wow.
looking. Hey,
Young married guys, don't make that mistake.
Was.
Don't make that mistake, boys. I'm telling you. Be
I
careful
was-
of your verb tenses.
I was 18. There is a difference between 18 and
I thought you were
49.
19.
No, I was 18. You were 19.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, he's going to have to look at the date in his ring to figure out when we met.
Secret trick, if you're getting married, have your wedding date inscribed on the inside of your wedding ring. That way you will never forget it.
Okay, so different kinds of love.
Different kinds of love we've seen. So one of the things that I saw suggested here as I did some work on this was that John often uses slight variations when he repeats himself.
Yes.
So that scholars all over the world for centuries have been making huge deals out of, oh, he changes the love word. What about lamb versus sheep? What about feed versus tend? Those are some different words that John's using. So he's got to have some great intent behind them, and we can't figure out what it is. And I think it's this, and this guy thinks it's that, and blah, blah. And they're arguing back and forth, and that's what really smart people do. And
A lot.
and yet what we see in John's gospel, in the Greek in particular, is that he often changes words slightly when he's making a list, as though he wants to keep it fresh, as though he wants to just use a different word so it doesn't get boring. So it's not just repetition.
Any writer knows that we've got to change up some words.
Yeah. So it's really a stylistic thing.
Yes. When sometimes we mean the same thing, we look for a different word to give it just a nuance.
Yeah.
Just a little
That's
nuance.
exactly the word I was thinking, was that John's going for nuance, not wholesale different meaning.
Right.
And we have, of course, blown it way out of proportion. And whoa, when really John's like, dude,
Right.
it's pretty clear. It's love and it's sheep and it's take care of them. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Right. Let's keep this simple.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about let's go back to do you love me more than these, and Peter being the one who rises up and affirms that he is ready to be crucified really for Christ.
That's what Jesus is talking about.
Right, to die, to take up the cross, to suffer for Christ. Peter is the one who says, I'm willing. And we see that Jesus places him in that position. And Jesus says here in the gospel, Peter says, Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved, John, following behind. And Jesus has just had this discussion with Peter about, you ready? You ready to? And Peter's like, hey, what about John? Right now,
what about
remember,
him?
John is the writer of this book.
Yeah.
He's going to be a little partial to himself, right?
Yeah.
He's going to bring himself into it in some manner. And Peter's like, hey, what about that guy?
Yeah.
And Jesus says, you don't worry about that guy.
That's pretty
Literally.
much exactly what Jesus said.
Yeah, none of your beeswax what I'm going to do with that guy.
Mind your business,
Mind
Pete.
your business. Peter, remember, you're the one.
Yeah.
You said you would be willing to take up the cross and suffer for me. You don't worry about what I do with other people. And so we see this. A lot of people want to make this into a competition, that John raises himself and competes with Peter. And I don't see it that way at all. I see John actually affirming Peter's ministry in this, that he's actually saying, Peter will be the one. Peter is the one. I think that's why why would John even include this in his book?
That's what I was just thinking.
Why would he even include it in his book if there was some kind of competition?
Because John's really clear that there are things he left out of his book.
Yes.
That's the other piece, is we tend to think that just because what we read in black and white, that that's all there is to the story. But at the end of chapter 20, John writes, chapter 20, verse 30, now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples.
These are only a few.
Which are not written in this book.
Right.
But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and that by believing in him you may have life in his name. So John's really clear that it does. So
very clear.
He didn't have to include this little piece with Peter.
Right, but he does.
Interesting.
And I think it's to affirm Peter's ministry. It's not a competition. John is saying, look at Peter. He's going to be the one who dies, and my life is going to look different. I am going to continue for 3 more decades. I'm going to live long enough to write this book. Because this book was written, John's book was written after the death of Peter.
And the Revelation, would you add that in there too? Have you gotten that far?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think I probably would.
You want to see some fun scholastic debates? Talk about who wrote John's Gospel, the Revelation of John, and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Lots of different commentaries, and scholars come down to lots of different answers on those things.
Right. Well, we won't go there today. But what we will say is that John is uplifting Peter here.
Okay.
And he also wants to point out that Jesus has a mission and a vocation, a calling for each of us, and it looks different. That some of us will look more like Peter, and some of us may look more like John.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's okay. That some of us are called to pastor, and others of us are called to write.
Sure.
And others of us are called to do other things for the body of Christ. And I think that's kind of what John is saying here, and affirming that it's Jesus's business, not ours. And so when we get into the business of comparing ourselves to each other, even in ministry, especially in ministry, that's dangerous business, because Jesus has a unique calling for each of us.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. And it's I just love it ain't none of your business.
It is not your business.
It's Jesus's business.
So that the apostolic ministry that we're called to carry out does not have one flavor. That it looks like leadership, and it looks like we need people who are CEOs, and we need people who are hospital chaplains, and we need people who are teachers, and we need people who are missionaries, and we need people who are evangelists, and we need people who are prophets, and we need all of these gifts that God gives to the body of Christ by the power of the Holy Spirit that Paul talks about in multiple places further on in the New Testament. And that our calling into that is an invitation by God to live out who God made us to be.
Right.
And that it's not comparing us to each other is comparing apples and oranges.
Correct.
Yeah. So when I look at Craig Rochelle and I'm like, oh, well, that guy's like a superstar, rock star pastor, and we don't have that many people at our church as they got at their church. The failure there is not that I'm not Craig Rochelle. The failure there is that I would presume to compare myself to him in the first place.
Well,
because his calling is not my calling.
Right, because we talked about early on in our church plant, J. George.
We do not want to be a megachurch.
Well, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
That is not who we are, and it's not who we are called to be. We love to disciple. Mm-hmm. We love to form people. We love to teach people. Mm-hmm. We love to shepherd, lead people into the formation of Christ, into conforming to the body of Christ. And what does that look like? And so we love to go deeper with people. And when you go deeper, it's very hard to go wider.
Yes, it is.
And so we are not about throwing the seed wide and far. We are about digging deeper with people that we have. Mm-hmm. We are about digging deeply with the vine.
Yeah. But we got to scatter the seed a little bit.
Well, we do scatter the seed.
We do, yeah.
Absolutely, but not to thousands and thousands.
Right. It's not our goal. It's not the mission that God has given us.
Right. I think we discovered that early on. That it can't change, because it's God's business.
Not that Pastor Groeschel is not interested in helping people grow deeper or any of that. I think he absolutely is.
He does it in a very different way than we do.
If you've not seen any of his leadership stuff,
amazing.
Check him out. I think they're pretty fantastic over there at lifechurch.tv. But
well, we're thankful to them because that's how we're getting broadcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, kind of, sort of.
Oh, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's all good. Although they're the ones who created this whole satellite TV thing. So without them, I don't know that any of us would be online today. So with that said, it is 10:08. We need to kind of wrap things up.
We got to get, because we got some church to do. We got some worship.
We've got some worship coming up at 10:35 right here on all of these platforms. And I hope that you will come back and join us for those things. We're going to hear the gospel read. We are going to pray some prayers and sing some songs. And we're going to have a sermon by the wonderful Jamie George to close out our Journey Through John series here on the second Sunday of Easter, April 19th. So for Jamie and myself, I want to say thanks so much for being with us here in the not-so-sunny studios of Grace Church in San Antonio, Texas. And we will look forward to seeing you with us next week.
Bye, guys.